Hello and welcome to Bodied, the Cloud9 fancast. I'm your host Havokpus, and I'm joined by Dr. Manhatten and Frozen. And we have a lot to talk about today because LCS is going to be starting this weekend.
Yeah, it's been a long ass time since we've seen a North American team play a competitive game, and even longer since we've seen more than two North American teams play competitive games. So I'm pretty hyped. I've been like binge watching Korea and China and the LEC in Europe as much as I can. So it's finally time for the big boys to step in.
Indeed. Before we get to all of that, we do have some news. The first, which is actually a big deal, and I'm actually really excited about, is that C9 has gained a pretty big sponsor in Puma, the athletic footwear and athletic apparel company. And they're going to be doing all the shoes and all the pants, I think, for the LCS team. I think maybe other teams, I'm not sure, but I think for sure the LCS team. And that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, did we get any numbers on how much that is going to be worth?
No, at least not from what I saw, but I think
don't remember seeing it.
There's definitely potential, especially with the fact that if they do come out with like some limited edition like Cloud9 Pumas, I would buy them in a heartbeat because those would be super sick.
I mean, it's not out of the question to think that. I mean, we saw Immortals do their thing with K-Swiss, actually, and then they released a special edition of like K-Swiss Immortals edition. So I wouldn't think it's out of the question. And also, it's just a big deal in the sense where, again, we're getting more non-endemic, footwear to, be part of esports. I mean, we heard that earlier this season. I think Uzi was signed by like Nike in China. So I mean, it's just cool to see more like non-endemic stuff come into the scene.
Yeah, and this is also a really big sponsor. This isn't something that's like a small tiny partnership or some sort of streaming service or anything. Like Crunchyroll or Twitch. Those are all right sponsorships, but this is a large, gigantic company that sells shoes and whatnot and makes millions upon billions of dollars every year. So, a giant name brand sponsorship like this is totally worth it, because other organizations like TSM, for a while, I was actually a bit angry with them because they were getting like Dr. Pepper and I think a few other big name sponsorships, and I was like, why can't we get big sponsorships like that?
Pretty sure they have Chipotle too, or at one point they had Chipotle.
They had Chipotle? Oh, that they get free drinks and food?
Yeah, that's pretty sweet actually. I would love that. But I'm really excited to see if they do something special for Cloud9. I can't say I would buy the shoes or pants, just because I'm not a huge Puma shoe fan, but I do really like a lot of their joggers and stuff. So I don't think they're gonna do anything special, but or with the pants at least. But it would be cool to see them try something unique.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely welcome some cross stuff. But yeah. Anyway, let's moving on. Next topic. CS:GO actually played, and the problems continue. Golden is still experiencing medical issues. C9 brought on Zolcis, a sort of a unknown American player, to perform with them. They looked okay, but they ended up getting knocked out in the losers round against Fnatic. And honestly, I'm not even sure what C9 is going to be doing to remedy this, or if there's any fix anytime soon.
It's definitely kind of tough right now for CS, especially just because of the whole Golden situation and us trying to like really try to find out whether that's actually going to be a long term thing or how day to day it is. Especially again because we have major season not that far away. I'm pretty sure like in about a month and a half is when Katowice is. I would say it wasn't. I'm not gonna say it was a total failure. Again, we did keep it competitive against Fnatic, which was, in my opinion, already kind of a testament as a whole. But also, this is just a side note. In terms of why I kind of take this LAN with a grain of salt, it was, if you guys didn't read, LAN was actually pretty poorly run in terms of a lot what was going on. Like they had like this thing where like I think that the players could see like the monitor that like was being projected to the audience, which is obviously not good at all. It's kind of like Season 2 Worlds, if you guys remember that controversy. Or like I think like it got delayed like hours on its first day, and like I heard from like a bunch of players and people like who were like writers that it was a complete shit show for that entire LAN, and it really didn't get solved until the second day. So that's just kind of a side note as to why I kind of hold this one with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I remember hearing that there was a lot of technical delays, which I think would definitely mess with me just as a player. I wasn't able to really watch a lot of it, so I can't speak for Zelsis's performance as a whole. I think also C9 announced that he was actually a coach, like he's been moved to like a coaching position, which is odd. So I'm not sure if they're courting another player. The CSGO landscape is really odd because you have like a bunch of brand name, like big names that have been playing for a while, and some of them are good. Some of them it's just like, well, you've been playing for a while. You can kind of play, but there may be someone better. It's hard to like really discover new talent, and I'm not sure exactly what direction C9 needs to go. I mean, their CSGO team has been hecked up like ever since the major, so like basically a full year.
Yeah, most definitely. It's gonna be pretty tough again going into major season, and I just want to see what we make of this, because I don't even know what to make of this. It's just it's odd.
There were a couple positives for the term though. The first match against Fnatic specifically, that was the only one I was able to watch, but they actually looked quite good. I think it kind of more shows the current ceiling at the moment was kind of beating Fnatic pretty handily in that first match. Everybody was making the shots that they needed to, and the team was moving around the map decently well, all things considered. And if they can keep on improving the floor and actual dysfunction that rightfully is plaguing the team, like it makes sense that it is like it could be a decent little roster that could not compete for championships, but should be competing in majors at the very least, I think.
Yeah, but I think that's sort of C9's issue. They first have to get a solid roster that will not fall apart within the next month, as well as once they've won the major, I think fans now have a certain expectation of like, okay, you have to at least perform at like this level now at majors. And the fact that this roster is constantly just losing people, I don't think that will happen anytime soon, and they need to get it together, honestly. It's kind of embarrassing to constantly be like, oh, well, we have to use this stand-in for this tournament, and we have to use this person for this tournament, and it's just like, come on, just find someone and stick with it, for God's sakes.
Yeah, that's what I think is the biggest thing that's fucking with the entire like just flow of the team, and how it restricts to some degree how well they can basically how cohesive they can possibly be. But yeah.
Yeah, well, hopefully they can fix it somehow, but I don't think that'll happen anytime soon, and we're gonna have to wait even longer. But moving on to our next bit of news, Moody, our PUBG leader, who has taken us to several tournament wins and has propelled Cloud9 PUBG to a pretty high level of performance, was unceremoniously like cut from the team. There hasn't been a lot of speculation, as there's like hasn't been a lot of like news as to why. One day he just tweeted, "I'm a free agent now. I'm no longer with Cloud9," and I am at a loss because PUBG was doing really good under him and the people that we brought in maybe like 8 months ago, with I can't remember their names, but which is bad. But
it's talking about stab and nerf in them.
no, it was like the people that we have now was like Cayman and
Currently, yeah, or
currently, yeah.
Yeah, it's Cayman and nerf and Profi.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. I mean, it's definitely, especially with like the whole like the pro league. I think that they want to push now with that Bluehole wants to push with PUBG. It's going to be really interesting how Cloud9 recoups from this. Yeah, it definitely did came out of left field that he was no longer on the team. In terms of how we're doing right now, again, I was watching some of the preseason. They looked again okay. I'm scared to think that Moody was definitely a big part of how the team was playing overall, and they just look kind of lost. I think it was when I was watching some of the preseason for the pro league, which I think was on like a week or two ago.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the team will move forward if they will exist at all, because C9 a few weeks ago did sort of unceremoniously just sell the Rainbow Six team to a different organization. So it could be that they're not seeing much traction in PUBG. Everyone's talking about Fortnite, though our Fortnite players have not been doing like anything outside of Hysteria, who has a fairly moderate following on Twitch for his streams. The rest of our PUBG sort of horde is not really doing much. So I think that the fact that no one seems to know what to do with Battle Royale stuff, especially Fortnite, and the fact that the fad is already kind of going away and it's being replaced by something else inevitably, I think that a lot of people are just like, well, we have these players, but we don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, I think in terms of Fortnite, the biggest issue is, again, the fact that, and I think that actually props to Myth on TSM for actually trying to do something about it, or he said he wanted to. One of the biggest issues is the fact that Epic just has no idea on how to, like, there's no communication with players and like the game and the devs itself. Like we saw, I think during like one of the skirmishes, they literally released a patch on the day of the tournament and made that live on that day. Where like these guys maybe had 2 hours of practice tops on that patch, so it's like, and it was a really game breaking patch with like that sword or whatever, and it was just complete like that. That's one of the big things with Fortnite that I think in terms of PUBG. I think it's a good amount it's because the hype for PUBG has died down a bit and it's now steadied a bit. On top of the fact that I have heard there's still some issues with PUBG, but Bluehole is trying to make sure that it's remedied now. They've done moderately respectable progress, but there's still a long way to go to actually making PUBG a good viewer experience. And with the Pro League, who knows what'll happen? I mean, yeah, I think people are going to point to H1Z1, but I think H1Z1 just as a whole was just not that good of a game. That's just my opinion. And Fortnite, again, it has potential. It's just, again, Epic needs to actually have communication with their pros and actually get input from them, because it's really tough.
Also, just having quality events. I've heard that some of the most recent Fortnite events have not just been that good. I think, if the viewers don't have a good experience and the players don't have a good experience, you're not going to get very far in esports. So they need to definitely just put in time to actually making your game a good, fun esports watch.
Yeah, almost definitely. I think that's also been a big problem with Fortnite. But yeah, I think that there are some problems. But obviously look, good thing the pros are actually trying to address them for the most part, and that's why I said props to Myth. I think he tweeted the other day that he kind of wanted to start like a players union for Fortnite pros, which I think is good.
Yeah, I definitely think that would be a start. But I think we should move on. Frozen, do you care about PUBG any?
I care. I just don't have anything to add.
All right then. Moving on. So next we're going to talk about sort of the LCS roster changes. I just want to spend like a few minutes on each team, not like long treatises. Breaking down. Each one, but just kind of talking about any changes that we see. I think we should skip our team as well, since we've talked about us ad nauseum. And we've already said our pieces on Niski and everything. So let's start with 100 Thieves. They have brought in Huhi and Bang to back up Someday, Onda, and Aframu. What 100 Thieves had kind of a really disappointing summer end, and they're looking to maybe hope that these additions will put some fuel back on the fire.
I actually love a lot of the moves that 100 Thieves made over the winter. I almost said the summer. I don't especially love Anda in the jungle, but Someday is an elite North American player. Bang is probably going to show up and be not a top 380 carry in my opinion, but he's going to be really good, and he's going to have his days where he looks like the best 80 carry. Obviously, they have Afromu, who's worked with Huhi before. And if they can break the language barrier, then I think that this team is going to be a sleeper title contender.
So my issue with 100 Thieves is that Afro has been playing for a while, and his time on 100 Thieves, I think a lot of, or at least a few times, he's looked really shaky, as well as just how the organization as a whole really mismanaged their summer split, just cutting people, not communicating anything with fans or sometimes even the players. The whole issue with like Rakara and Cody Sun was just really odd, and how they managed that whole situation. I think as time goes on, Afro I think is maybe going to slow down, and I think maybe him maybe competing is trying to be a voice maybe with Bang, for example. Bang was on SKT for a while, and maybe Bang will feel like he has maybe more of a leadership voice, and perhaps that was even why Meteos got cut, was just Meteos wanted to do things one way, Afro wanted to do things another way, and so he's like, all right, Meteos, you're in Challenger now, or Meteos, you just get cut, period. And, Afro gets people that are more agreeable to him. So, 100 Thieves kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I do think that Bang could be an upgrade. I think Huhi is more of a side grade. Huhi and Ryu seem to be about the same level.
Yeah, I can see a world where that happens, or the thing is. But I would say the Cody Sun thing was, in my opinion, just exacerbated by the lack of communication that happened. Like, it wouldn't have been as bad if it was for the fact that they basically said nothing. And I think that even Nate Shot spoke in his defense on Hotline League and talked about like why they didn't really say anything. Which, again, take it as you will. In regards to the additions, which are Bang, I think Bang. The good thing about Bang, in terms of why I have more optimism for him, as most people might be not as optimistic with imports, is because it's usually just teams just refuse to or don't really acknowledge the fact that culture might be a big thing with certain teams. And I think that was a problem. I mean, you want an example, just look at players like Febevin, who left and genuinely hated North America after like 1 year. Or again, we spoke about this a million times, but it's like the biggest dead horse ever is what happened with Mickey and Golden Guardians, which is just like Jesus Christ.
that situation was a shit show.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And like the thing about Bang is he actually has an environment that looks like he can actually thrive. He has players he's familiar with, like Someday and Huhi. On top of like he's actually I believe pretty good friends with Someday after playing against each other for many years in Korea. You have Ryu, who's going to be an assistant coach, and I think that's going to be really good for them. On top of Prawley, who I think is the strongest part of 100 Thieves that not too many people talk about, because he's one of those coaches that, like, despite the fact that the players may not necessarily agree with each other, one thing he's good at is always getting the respect of the unit as a whole. I mean, even Forgiven, one of the most infamously difficult players to work with, like, tweeted saying, like, I think he's without a doubt the best coach I've ever worked with, and he always knew how to get players on the same page. And I think that's in my opinion the strongest thing I got going for 100 Thieves.
All right.
Let's do Cloud9 last. Is that fine with you guys?
Well, yeah. I was going to think we could skip it entirely since we've already talked about them today, but we can take that on the end. Yeah, sure.
We'll do Cloud9 last, and then we'll go through it rather quickly, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Clutch Gaming.
Well, next up on the docket then is Clutch Gaming. Huhi has moved on from Echo Fox, And I believe the roster is. Oh, also, wait, where did Demonte play before Clutch Gaming?
Echo Fox as well.
Oh, okay. Okay, he was. Okay, I couldn't remember. Yeah. So Cooney and Demonte moved on from Echo Fox to Clutch Gaming to back up Lyra. They also have Piglet and Vulcan. Vulcan made a splash in the academy scene, and he was actually really good. He was one of the better looking supports in academy. So they have a really interesting mix of sort of like really old talent, really young talent. I just don't like Piglet. I think he from Team Liquid's documentary, he seemed like he was just difficult to work with, and I think that they'll definitely live or die by Piglet and his mentality throughout the split.
Yeah, I can agree with that. The things I like about this team are Huni and Lyra, and I think that if they had an even team, and by even I mean like players you could I'm are reliant to go like even in lane every time. If they had that, I think this team could actually be a really good if the meta kind of shifted towards their way. But I don't love Demonte. I don't love Piglet. The jury's out on Vulcan, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But I could see Cody's son coming in halfway through the split to try and save it for him.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that part too. With like, I think that Piglet, the whole thing I said about like creating an environment that's good for like a player, especially foreign talent, especially and including. The reality is that this team is basically like, it just doesn't seem like it's suited for Piglet. You have like two coaches who I've never even heard of, like Empire. I've seen some of his stuff on Twitter, but like I've never even heard of this guy. Baby Zeus is also their assistant guy who I think was on the academy last year. So not really the most authoritarian guys, but I think that would be good for someone like Piglet. It's more like an authoritarian, like a Song, or like someone like Kane. Again, not too hot on Demonte either. I don't know why he was playing a lot on Echo Fox, other than like maybe they just wanted to go with him over Phoenix, so I'll give you that much. But I can see this entire team just being like the Huni and Lyra show if Lyra can get back to form, because I think that he was relatively weak last split. Though again, I think that there were bigger problems on Clutch Gaming, bigger than Lyra. But I just can't get that split out of my head for him, and it really just seems like I wouldn't be surprised, if Piglet isn't performing to his expectation, then I could see them going into their lineup and bringing back Cody's son. Because I mean, even though he might not be the most favored AD carry right now in terms of public perception, I mean, he speaks decent English, and I would estimate it's probably not that much more difficult to work with Cody than with Piglet.
Oh yeah, for sure.
A quick question before we move on: what top and jungle duo would you rather have? Huni and Lyra, or Huni and Dardoch?
I kind of want Huni and Dardoch. I think they both do really well at kind of making these aggressive kind of moves, and they've already built up synergy from Echo Fox, and they seem to work fairly well. I think the only issue is they both kind of get tilted, and if they're not performing well, it really throws off how they play in game.
Yeah, that's agree. I think that if you need another, like, if anybody asked me like why I thought they were a bad bot lane, or like, we're not a bad bot, a bad like top side of the map, like I just want you to go back and watch that third place again. That third place game with Clutch Gaming, like that was legit the both of them against the world. Like they just destroyed Clutch in that third place game in spring. So that's why I would side with them a bit more. But yeah, I do see them being much more volatile in that sense.
Alrighty, let's move on to CLG then.
All right. Well, CLG has some familiar faces as well as some new ones. Darshan, Wiggly, and Stixay, and I believe Biofrost are returning for a new split, but they have a new mid laner in Power of Evil. He moved on from Optic to CLG, and I just can't really feel. I don't really feel CLG. I haven't felt them. Last split, and I think maybe even just last year in general, they seem to be really off with everything. I think they did get a new coach, so perhaps they got rid of Zix, and maybe their new coaching situation can help. But I think that kind of remains to be seen in if they can actually like get their players to perform better than before. I can definitely see Darshan being in danger of being replaced since he's been on CLG for so long, but he, in most recent years, just hasn't seemed to be performing as well as previous splits, I think.
Yeah, I think this team has a lot of potential. Actually, Darshan isn't like a world-beating top laner, but he's not gonna feed in lane every week. So I'm more interested to see how the mid ADC and support actually play out the split. Power of Evil in his meta is arguably the best mid laner in North America. But as the meta has shifted, he has proven that he isn't always the number one mid laner in North America. It can be extremely volatile. So I'm more interested to see of what Wiggly does. I think he's the big question mark, but I don't think that they will be taking him out for Moon at any point in time, who is the sub / academy jungler. So I think this team has a lot of potential, but I would probably think they're more of a middle of the pack team with a ceiling at maybe third place.
Yeah, I think with Moon has potential, but he just hasn't seemed to live up to it. So I think all of his struggles in the past have kind of compounded, and I think that's why he's in a sub position right now. And I'm not sure if he may ever be able to break out from that.
I think it's also good that CLG is actually going towards someone like Wiggly, simply because I feel like CLG is kind of like a diet version of Cloud9 in the sense of what really works for them is, for the most part, not acquiring big name talent. And I think that that's one of the big mistakes that they did when they got Biofrost and Rainover last year. On top of the fact that I don't think Rainover is that good necessarily. I think they're going back to like, all right, what is the winning formula start? And CLG, while it may not have been like a talent factory like Cloud9 or like other orgs in the NALCS, I mean, they have produced pretty respectable players like Xmithy. Well, I mean, Xmithy we can debate. Darshan actually, I think his peak was absolutely when he started playing a bit more CLG. 6A, another big name. I mean, they had Afromoo and Doublelift for years, developing those guys, and I think that going back to something like Wiggly is a good step in the right direction for them. Darshan, I think, it's just, again, I think he's kind of like I consider him the kind of benchmark for top laners, where like if you're better than him, you're probably pretty damn good. But like if he's better than you, it's like, yeah, like, you know, like I don't have much hope for you in that sense. I think that while Wiggly is probably the bigger question mark, I would also say another good question mark is right now the bot lane right now, because while they both play an identical style, the question is how they can do against some of these bigger name guys. Again, you have Double and Core, Bang Afro, Turtle JJ, Sneaky, and Sneaky Zazel, Def LA. But I mean, I would say that like this is where we definitely want to improve. Also, props on getting the coaching staff of Irene and Walden Green, which I think will definitely be a bit better for them in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on to our next team, Echo Fox, who has sold their souls. Rick Fox has done some super black magic because he has gotten the kind boy Rush himself to come back to North America along with Phoenix. Rush is actually, I think, really good friends with Phoenix. So he will be joining Solo, Apollo, and Hakaho. And I'm kind of feeling this roster. I put them low on my predictions just because a lot of these pieces seem to be a bit untested. But I think they could definitely do well. Rush is insane on his own. I think the issue is when he was with C9. You know, he was very risky, and sometimes he would be really hit or miss. But Rush, when you can control him and utilize him well, they can do a lot. And Apollo Hakaho has just been the darlings of the bot lane. They have been the duo that everyone loves, and they can always just do solid work. It may not necessarily at times be the best work, but they do solid work. And I think backing up some other solid players like Solo and Phoenix, I think they can actually maybe do well if coaching staff and everything mixes just right.
I think this is probably one of the worst teams in the league this year. Unfortunately, I really liked. I mean, there's not really a good way to say it. They made my favorite roster, or they made my favorite a roster move of anybody by picking up a Rush, because I'm so happy to see him streaming again in English, because he's probably my favorite streamer to watch by far. So I'm glad he's back in North America. But other than that, I don't think they have any other plus players on their roster. Anyone who's going to win lane consistently without having a huge counter pick. They don't do anything particularly well besides have Rush, who has proven on his day he can be the best jungler in the NALCS. Sorry, in the LCS now, no NA. But he's also proven that he can also be a bit volatile in some of his performances, especially when it doesn't come to carry junglers per se. I do actually really like solo. I think that the bot lane is decent. I just don't think that anything jumps out to me and screams we're a potentially good team.
I actually have to agree on that one. Yeah, I think that the one thing I will say that I think that is good for Echo Fox is Rush, and maybe Phoenix I think is good. On top of the fact that they picked up Song, who's I think is going to help facilitate with Rush and Phoenix a bit better. Especially because, I mean, Rush has been under relatively strict coaching staff, especially in KT, I can imagine. So I think that someone like Song, who's definitely like a really strict, traditional Korean authoritarian coach, will be good for him. Yeah, other than that, I just think that's just going to be the Rush and Phoenix show just versus the world. Solo, heavily power crept by some of the other, like, who's who of top laners. Apollo Hakuho, while solid and have, like, synergy, it's just, I'm not terribly impressed by them. And again, yeah, like Rick Fox, you have one major PR point after that entire clusterfuck with the situation with Adrian, Altec, and Phoenix last split with getting Rush. And again, I'm happy to see Rush streaming again. It's like I've never been happier, and his English has gotten much better. So props to him. But yeah, other than that, other than Rush and Phoenix, it's just I just feel like that's what the Echo Fox roster is.
All right. Well, we'll have to see if they can rush their way to.
Ooh.
Oh no, it was good. You laughed. You won't admit it, but you laughed.
I almost smiled, almost.
Well, I am in a pit of vipers because we're moving on to FlyQuest. They have Viper, Santorin, Pobelter, Wild Turtle, and JJ. And I don't think FlyQuest is actually going to do anything with this roster. I mean, aside from Pobelter, who is good, he got kicked from TL, to go to FlyQuest, and they have JJ, who has looked not that impressive. I mean, I actually haven't seen a lot of JJ. He's a fairly new player. And Santorin, he got a little better from TSM, but I think there are just better junglers out there.
Yeah, for me, I know that the ESPN did their power rankings, their world power rankings, and had FlyQuest kind of on the higher side of North American teams. They had them at 40 in the world, which I mean isn't bad, but obviously it's not great. But I think they're a bit overrated on that index. Santorin's on his good days is a plus jungler. He's not a great jungler. Pobelter is pretty decent. He's never gonna completely carry the game on his own back, especially when he has players like Wild Turtle in the bot lane who can throw away a lead with one press of the F key into a team fight and blow himself up immediately. And like you said, there's still questions about Viper and JJ. I do think that there is potential if they can get the top lane and a support on board, because on his days, Santorin is a pretty good jungler. Pobelter is obviously an LCS champion mid laner, and Wild Turtle is too. So I don't think that this is a top team in the LCS, but I think that they have a ceiling of making playoffs.
Agreed. I do think that they have that ceiling. I think this team is the most average team in the NALCS.
Yeah,
I have no other
that's
way to
fair
put
to
it.
say.
They're pretty average. Like Pobelter is a pretty average person. Turtle, while he can have his moments, isn't necessarily a guy I would put like a guy like all of my eggs in like the Turtle basket. JJ, Santorin's probably the most standout player in my opinion because I think he was fairly decent last split. And again, there's so many questions about Viper, and again, you're going up against a pretty demanding class of top laners like Huni, Licorice, Someday, Haunter, like a Impact. Like it's gonna be tough for a rookie guy to come out. I mean, he learned from Impact to some degree, or definitely had a chance to learn from him on TLA. On the coaching staff of COP, I definitely have some cautious optimism about. He's had worked with good players in the past. Like, I mean, he's worked on Dignitas in 2017, and he was under Zabutine on Optic in 2018. So that's not a terrible coaching staff. But yeah, I would say like this is probably like the most average playing team. But they could probably make it to, like a low seed playoff.
Yeah, maybe. I think it'll depend on if people like Pobelter and Santorin can maybe in Wild Turtle too. I mean, Turtle's not that bad, but I think it's a matter of reining in and pushing your strengths up to the limit and making your weaknesses not as bad. But Golden Guardians is I know exactly the point that we are going to touch on for Golden Guardians. So they have Haunter, Contracts is returning for another season. Froggen, definitely an Ole, and I don't know what to say about Golden Guardians. I mean, Haunter is good. Contracts has been a beast ever since he played for C9. Ole can be really good. He has his off days, but I think Ole is good. But then you just bring in Froggen, and I have to ask why. His track record has been abysmal. Why bring in a mid laner who has had just a very poor track record with on-stage performance? He may be insane individually, but when you look at how he has played with teams, like look at when he was on Echo Fox, he played so incredibly passive, and he was dragging down the team so much that they constantly were in relegation because the team just could not perform with him and the other people on the team. I have no idea why anyone would sign Froggen in this day and age. Other than they just can't get another mid laner besides Froggen, and he was the last resort.
I mean, he might have been, but I don't think he's quite as bad as you're saying. I think he's a good mid laner. Like, he's not gonna solo carry game from start to finish. But I feel like this team has some sneaky potential if the meta shifts from a 25-minute game to more of a 35-40-minute game, because I think that's when Froggen really starts to shine. I actually really like this team just based off the fact they have Haunter, Contracts, and Ole, and I think you could put that up against almost any other team in the league and find a decent amount of wins. Saying that, I think that the rest of the LCS has gotten a lot better, and I think that there are some question marks. If I were to give them a ceiling like I have with some other teams, I think this team could be a top 4 team. Like, by top 4, I mean like 4. But I guess we're gonna have to see the play between Froggen and definitely and see how they mix on stage.
Yeah, if I could make an analogy for like Golden Gardens in this roster right now, I would say imagine if you had like a pretty decent, like for any of my computer nerds out there, like in terms of like who like build like stuff. Imagine if you had like a really good CPU, but that just could be overclocked. Like it's capped. Like that's how I would honestly describe this entire team right now. It's like you got good players. You got Haunter, he's not bad. I think that again, I think it's while he had a relatively underwhelming season last split. I think that a lot of that was exacerbated by coaching staff. Contracts, I think, is actually a player who would definitely want to play around Haunter a bit more. He was used to doing that with Impact a lot. and that now that he has more star potential to play around, it'd be good for him. Olay, I would be more optimistic with Olay because I think that a lot of the pessimism that people have with Olay on Golden Guardians, or like when they look at him on Team Liquid, I think that Olay was just a bad culture fit for Team Liquid. And I think that he would probably succeed more in a team like Golden Guardians in a sense. So I think I think that in general will be important for something like Olay. Froggen, he's not bad necessarily. It's just he's just not a player that you can build a team around. It's weird. He's good, but it's just like I wouldn't necessarily say build a team around Froggen because we've seen this several times, and he hasn't cracked 7th ever since since he won his first split on Alliance 5 years ago. Like, I mean, yeah, it's just I think there's a line that you have to draw in the sand with Froggen and how good he possibly is. The one thing that no one is talking about in terms of Golden Guardians, I would say, is the pickup of Anero, the spring coach from Echo Fox last year, and they got Danon, who was the general manager for C9 for many years. And I think that's where they really struck gold was a lot of the staff, and I'm really, really curious to see how Anero and Danon can really manage this team.
Yeah, I think that he can. It all depends, I guess, on management. But I am not sold on Froggen, and I think that GG is going to have to not Golden Guardians. I'm sorry for the confusion. Guardians will definitely have to really sell me through their performance to convince me that Froggen was a good choice for them. Moving on, Optic Gaming. They have Dokla Meteos Crown. That's from Samsung Crown, Arrow, and Big. And again, I think it's just I'm not sure how this will do. I have them fairly low on I actually have them last in my predictions. Just because Arrow, ever since he got to NA after that first split, he has not really impressed. And you have Big, who is kind of Meteos is smart as hell, but that plus the language barrier of Crown, I'm not sure how the team will do. Crown himself is good, but when you have a bot lane that can probably get bullied really hard, and a top lane that is going against much stronger talent, I don't know how Optic is really going to succeed.
Yeah, I agree with a decent amount of what you said, because we did see Samsung kind of fizzle out at the end of last year, especially at Worlds. But I think we do have to remember that Crown is still an elite mid laner, and I think that if the right things click, that this could be the ultimate sleeper team. I don't think a lot of people are going to put them too high, but Crown, Arrow, and Meteos have a ton of experience between them, and a ton of experience winning things. So I think that this would be my ultimate sleeper team. Being a team that is probably going to be probably picked to finish in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th category, that could actually make a decent run in playoffs, but not actually win the whole thing. But I think that they have a chance to make playoffs and get a shout to the second round of it. Not saying that I think they will, but I think that they are the quote unquote bad. They have the highest potential of any quote unquote bad or quote unquote average team.
It's really hard for me to pinpoint what this team is necessarily trying to accomplish. That's my biggest thing with them is what are they . Yeah, you have Meteos, smart player. You have Dardoch, one of the most aggressive balls out players you'll ever see in terms of the jungle in the NALCS period. You got Dokla, who plays a weird split pushing style with stuff like Fiora and Yorick. Crown, definitely a good, more controlled player. I think if Victor ever comes to the meta, then everyone should be scared out of their minds, just because this guy is probably one of the best Victors in the world, if not the. Arrow, who is ever since his MVP season in spring 2017 has just been on a slow but gradual decline. Big, Sabatine is.
He was on Echo Fox, and he had that one meme where he kept saying "kill the Lucian" over and over again.
Yeah, that's all I know Big for.
That's his one claim to fame.
Yeah, and then Sabatine, respectable coach in some of his insights that I've ever heard, but I just don't see him working well with guys like Crown and Arrow, who are definitely big personalities in a sense, or definitely Crown. I mean, you're dealing with a former world champion who is pretty much has hinted many times that he was like on the verge of retiring and maybe isn't really in the greatest mental state right now after everyone destroyed him, like, or basically on like Reddit and Invent destroyed him for his performance on Gen G. I mean, it's just it's just there's so many conflicting play styles, so many conflicting personalities, so many conflicting cultures in terms of how like these teams like to play. It's just maybe that could be their thing where it's just like, you know, they have nothing to lose at that point, so they basically just realize, you know what, like, let's just play however the hell we want. But it's really hard for me to identify what this team is, just what their identity or what they're trying to accomplish with this, because it's weird.
Yeah, it's definitely weird for sure. But let us move. I don't know why that was funny. It sounded like lettuce. Let us move on to Team Liquid, who have made only a couple, but some very startling changes. So their roster is Impact, Xmithy, Jensen, Doublelift, and Core JJ. Jensen, as we all know, was our boy. Not anymore, because apparently he was not happy on Cloud9, even though he seemed to be, like, before. And the thing that still bothers me is, like, it seemed like C9 was the only North American organization for him. Like, if he wasn't going to play on C9 anymore, he'd just go back to Europe. So it seems kind of odd that he would go not only to a different team, but go to our rivals that also has another former player of ours. And then Core JJ returning to NA, I think, is also a big thing, because, you know, he was doing so well on Samsung and in Korea. So now and I think that this team will definitely, I think, end up creating some sort of salary cap, because if Steve and Team Liquid continue to just reach into their endless pockets and then toss money at any player that comes by that seems to suit their fancy, I think I see no way of any other team really competing unless they have just as deep of pockets as them. And I think that it'll be really interesting to see going forward in the splits to follow if Riot really clamps down and says, hey, you can't spend this much money anymore. You're not being fair to the other teams, or what's happening. So I think that Team Liquid will most likely win this split, probably splits to come, just because of how stacked their roster is. Like, raw power alone, they can probably do fairly well. And I think that they'll continue to do well until, like, Doublelift retires. But then you have, like, Core JJ and Jensen and Impact. Like, it's just such a mind-boggling thing that they can get away with this, and I'm really upset that they continue to do so. But yeah, they're probably going to do really well, and I'm really upset.
Yeah, I would say, like, as an aside, there's like a small aside to the salary cap, and this is where I'll just end it. I think that it's not only good just in terms of, like, to prevent, like, the big guys from getting even bigger, but also it's also good just in the sense of it prevents us from overspending for players, and obviously that's overspending isn't good for the longevity of the scene. But also I would say it's also good because, I mean, for example, like, someone like Doublelift honestly is not going to give a shit about the salary cap, because he has so many other ways that he can monetize himself. He has YouTube, he has his stream, which is very popular. You know, someone like, you know, I'll tell my head, like Xmithy. He's probably gonna, like, if money is a big thing for him, he's probably gonna care a bit more about that. So it'll probably mean we get more personalities or more ways of revenue in the LCS if we do introduce a cap. Because again, Doublelift can take a pay cut right now. He's not gonna give a shit because he could just make up that money in a stream or whatever sponsor deals he has, because we all know he's a popular name. So yeah, that's kind of my thing about, like, salary caps as a whole. And I do think that that for the longevity of the scene, I would like to see the Player Association do something about this, because, yeah, like, the fact that you can have Jensen, Core JJ, and Impact, all of which Impact's contract is rumored to be a 7-figure salary, which that's what you get for winning Worlds. Reminder, like that's what the team gets for winning Worlds. So that's just ridiculous. They could spend that much money. Yeah, no, everyone and their mother probably has this as, like, one of, if not the best team, like, in the LCS, just off of raw power alone. The only downside I would see to this is, again, this last year's team, it's completely different from last year's team. Last year's team was basically like NA's version of RNG, where basically it was just play around bot lane, whatever you do, just the bot lane is the star. Now it's like you've spread it a bit more now, and the question is how does the team make sure that they're not as exposed as much? Because again, Pobelter is definitely not Jensen. Like this guy is a heavy step up from Pobelter. He's not going to be down CS. He's not. He's going to be winning his lanes, and it's going to require resources or more resources as opposed to Pobelter. So how does the team balance that out? How do they balance Smithy out? And how does the coaching staff just handle all of this and get good reads? And how do they manage these players who've been playing since at the latest season 5? Like in terms of like how they always play, these are pretty old guys. I would say this is probably one of, if not the oldest roster in the NALCS. So that's my big question in terms of like Team Liquid right now. But no, raw power alone, these guys are definitely a team on your radar.
I will say though, Jensen, at least in the past couple of years, has not looked to be the form that he was. Like, I would say that towards the end of his time on C9, he was actually looking to be less like insanely dominant and more him being a bit more reserved and being more in the supportive style. I'm not sure if that was more his route and him slowly molding himself into that, or if it was the team needed him to play that way. So I am kind of curious to see, will Jensen continue on this more supportive side and him not being maybe as impactful as he was in the past, just alone as a sole player, or if he is going to revert back to how he was at his peak on C9, where he was just crushing everybody, like on his own, and basically like dragging at times the rest of Cloud9, kicking and screaming across the finish line.
Yeah, I think it is going to be interesting to see how he beds into the team. The big analogy I kind of think of is what a lot of the questions were around the Golden State Warriors when they first assembled their roster with Kevin Durant and Curry and Draymond Green and such. Is there enough ball to go around? And I think that kind of fits with this team. Like, is there enough gold for everyone in the game? Like, Jensen and Doublelift are two huge gold hogs and expect the game to be played for them every single game, week in and week out. I think that by far this is the best roster on paper, I would think. They have ton of experience. They have tons of championships between them, enough for Jensen's big zero there. So if they were not to finish first or second, if they were not to finish first and if they were not to make finals, I would have to consider this season a failure for them, because that's how much they've invested into this team and organization. Because they even have TF Blade and Mike Young in Academy, who are both, or TF Blade's not proven, but Mike Young's a proven starting jungler who is probably on a decent a salary on his own. But going back to, we can have the salary cap debate a different week, but if the Players Association ever comes out with a salary cap idea for themselves, then they deserve everything that comes along with it, because that artificially caps their wages. So I personally don't want to see a salary cap. I want to find another way to find parity in the league. So, but yeah, let's move on.
All right,
and have that debated.
We're coming in hot on the trail to the end of this. Sorry, folks. TSM, we have Broken Blade, Grig, Bjergsen, Sven, and Smoothie, and I think this roster can actually do fairly well. You know, Broken Blade, I haven't seen too much of him, but I've heard good things. Grig is basically all of TSM's junglers, and he is serviceable, and he does what Bjergsen wants. Bjergsen, I think that he could probably play this game for another 10 years and probably not slow down. It's insane actually how consistent he is. And as much as I hate him for his success, I have to give him props for how consistent and how good he is. Sven, I personally don't like, but he is very talented. And then Smoothie, who I am hoping can do really well, because Smoothie, even though he has left us, especially after that whole roster bungle. I really want him to do well because I do think that he has the potential to be the best support in North America still. And I think like when he was on Cloud9 toward the end, it did look like he was really off form, but I'm hoping he can get back to that because watching Smoothie at peak Smoothie was some of the best support work I have ever seen.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree with you on most of what you said. I think that this team is probably going to be good, but the question is more of how good they're going to be. I wouldn't be too surprised to see Acadian come in and play a couple games this year. We know that he's a really good jungler. I'm not quite sure how he ended up on GSM's bench, really, because he is definitely better than some of the other junglers out there. And the fact that he's Native American should have given him a big boost. Like CLG and 100 Thieves could have both used him. So, and FlyQuest, I think he'd probably be about the same or an upgrade on all those junglers. So how he ended up here was kind of surprising to me. But I'm not the biggest fan of Sven. He's good, but I think we're going to have to see what happens with him and Smoothie rather than just counting it up as a plus. I'm really interested in seeing how Broken Blade does in the LCS because that top lane gauntlet is really rough. Like you have Someday, Licorice, Hooney, Impact, and Haunter, and that is going to be tough for him to crack into, especially in the spring split. So somebody has to lose at that top lane matchup. So I'm interested to see how he balances it out and is able to play.
Yeah, I would say in terms of the Acadian situation, as we see, he's actually going to be starting this weekend, actually, because it was confirmed that Greg actually has wrist problems. So that's kind of that's basically what's good for at least in terms of seeing. It's really hard to see whether they will go with Acadian or whatever for the long term. If whether it's just going to be Acadian with Greg's wrist problems that cause him to take a hiatus, or if Greg comes back and gets better and they want to go with him, or it's very difficult for this jungle situation, even more so. Even because as we all know, TSM's jungle situation is really bad, but this is like even crazier because again we don't know the future of this for now. But who knows? Acadian could actually step up now that he's actually on a bigger stage, or also I think I could also see him not doing as well because I did see him have kind of questionable plays on Optic when he was playing then. Sven, I think it's a really good proving ground for him because whenever people hear of Sven, they're immediately thinking of Mithy, and I think it's really good that he separates himself from that and basically just tries to create define himself in terms of his playstyle as opposed to everyone associating him with Mithy, which I think wasn't really good for him as a whole. In terms of Smoothie, I think that's where I'm very, very optimistic for TSM is because Smoothie, I think he's peak Smoothie is the best support in North America, period. He's even given Afro and Bio and Olay runs for them, buddy. Like this guy,
I called for his MVP crowning multiple times.
It's ridiculous. Like this guy, it's just. And I think that on a team with Bjergsen, a very, very good and knowledgeable player, a guy who doesn't show any signs of slowing down, and with a coach like Zik, somebody who's worked with one of the best supports of all time in Aframu. If we've seen what he can do with Aframu and Double, on CLG in summer 2015, I'm curious to see what he can do with Smoothie, who is a great, great support. And Broken Blade, I think that the hype for him, while is relatively reasonable, go at it with a bit of caution because again, to define yourself in the world of top laners in the North American LCS is you definitely have your work cut out. You have a lot of top laners you got to go through before you can even start to actually make a name for yourself this split. So that's where I say go in cautiously with Broken Blade.
All right, well, outside of C9, those are the new rosters for the spring season. And I guess we can kind of talk about C9's roster as we are going in to discuss their matches for this weekend. They're talking about Team Liquid and 100 Thieves, I believe is the second one. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. All right, perfect.
That's a gauntlet of a weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough first week. Starting lineup, I assume, would be Licorice, Spenskaren, Niski, Sneaky, and Zazel. Now, we know 4 of the 5. Licorice has been a V. Spenskaren, his story has been a great Cinderella story of coming from being a kind of a joke on TSM to actually being a really great jungler again. And Sneaky and Zazel are a really good duo. And Zazel is looking like he is another up-and-coming great support, learning through experience. So I think the question is, how is Niski going to perform on the team? And how is he going to deal with some opponents like Jensen or Huhi, for example? What can we expect from him, and how is he going to really help out the team, and what are like his strengths going to be?
Yeah, based on what Golden Glue said on stream, it seems like Niski has kind of the same play style as Jensen did, where he is kind of a more lane focused mid laner, but he fits into like the team atmosphere kind of a bit better. That's based off a quick clip from Golden Glue stream the other day. So he has, I want to think, a similar champion pool, but he's seemed to pick up a little more champions that are meta, or that are more for the meta right now than we saw Jensen pick up towards the end of last season. So, I mean, I think time is going to tell. I don't have anywhere kind of guess to how this is going to go. The ceiling is just as high, and I think the floor is a little bit lower than what it would have been. I think if anything, this is going to be, especially the spring split, is going to be a bit volatile, where we win the games that we probably shouldn't. Like, we'll come out in 2-0 Team Liquid and 100 Thieves, and then we'll lose to like Optic game aiming one weekend or something. So that's my read on the roster right now.
In terms of Niski, I will say I probably have a bit more favoritism towards him, simply because I've been watching this dude since like Fnatic Academy, when like he first stepped to the LCS period. That was spring 2017 when he got promoted. That was the roster. I think it was Kikis and Broxa. But like the positives for Niski, and why I think the risk for him is a bit less mitigated, is like, I think I've said this before, but like he actually has experience in North America. Like, again, players like Febivin on Clutch Gaming, those guys, that was a risk by all means, and we saw that didn't pay off that well, in the sense where he basically rage quit NA, and I think a lot of NA solo queue players didn't have the greatest opinion of Febivin. Like, I'm pretty sure Dardock tweeted right when Misfits actually announced Febivin, he actually tweeted LMFAO, good riddance. Like, that's actually a real thing. But like, I mean, Niski he's made a lot of friends in North America. He actually likes it here to some degree, and that's what's good for him. And some people forget, like, even when he first came to North America, when he was on Envious in summer 2017, like, legitimately, this dude was definitely, well, not like consistently doing it. He was in his first year was roughing up Bjergsen and Jensen. Like, I'm pretty sure there was a game we lost to Envious because of how well Lyra played through Niski, and like Jensen just looked completely lost, and like Contract couldn't do anything about it. Like, I remember that one. So the fact of the matter is, I mean, this guy has so much potential, so much room to grow. I mean, he has probably the best practice partner in the academy in Golden Glue, and one of the best coaches in the league, who like legitimately like doesn't take shit from anybody. And like, if he sees, like, if he's so good at identifying what players are good at with Reaper, and I think that's probably the biggest crown jewel for Cloud9 as a whole in this match against Team Liquid. It sucks that we probably have the roughest schedule ahead, but like, if they somehow manage to 1-1, like, I wouldn't even be mad at that. Like, that itself would be a testament to, hey, there's actually fuel in this tank that can work.
And I think the good thing is that Reaper has been such a boon for Cloud9, because he has improved the team tremendously ever since he arrived. And I think that his ability to see what needs to be done with his players to really improve them, as well as if he sees that changes need to be made, he will make them. His benching of Sneaky, Smoothie, and Jensen, I think was not only needed, but it turned out to be the right decision because it fixed a lot of problems that they had. And I think that Reaper knows what he's doing. I think that sometimes he does make mistakes in pick bans, and I think that sometimes he tries to get too cute with it. But I think that if it is anyone who can really bring Nisqy to another level, it is him. And when we saw, there's footage of him in Splice, he did some really insane things just by himself. So I think that the talent is there and everything is there. I think it's just a matter of, will he be able to fit within Cloud9 and their system and not cause any problems?
Yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest question that you have right now. But no, I mean, he's worked with, I would say, pretty big and respectable personalities. I mean, he's worked with guys like Lyra, he's worked with Seraph, he's worked with Otawamne, Kabe. He's worked with like pretty decent coaches. Like Dylan Falco, I believe he worked with for a bit. He also worked with Peter Dunn, who, if you don't know about Peter Dunn, like legitimately, this dude, he's a pretty demanding coach in a sense when he was on Splice. And we saw him at Rift Rivals, and actually, like, even though they weren't the strongest team going into it, they did surprise a lot of people. And I'm like really, really excited for like Nisqy because again, he seems to be fitting it all well. And also, he happens to be carrying Licorice and solo queue according to his Twitter, so that's good for him.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad that him and Licorice are getting along because Licorice, I think, definitely has positioned himself very highly on the team, and I think that that's awesome because he was a rookie, and me included. I think I remember after one performance, I gave him a C, like as a grade rating, and everyone was like, "Are you crazy?" And now he is just this amazing player that does a whole lot, and he's incredibly valuable. So I think that Licorice's growth is amazing, and I hope he just continues to grow from there and becomes an even better top laner.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so I agree with you guys, but we have one last topic to touch on before we end this insanely long episode. We have 2 matches this week. What are your predictions, and how does Cloud9 win the game? Or win each game? Let's start with Team Liquid.
I think C9 may. I can't predict the Team Liquid game. I have a feeling that they may kind of lose just because Team Liquid on paper has the better firepower. I think if C9 is going to win, it's making sure that Jensen feels really uncomfortable, as well as making sure Doublelift can't do anything. If you can shut down Doublelift as well as Jensen, you've pretty much won the game, because Impact and X-Smithy isn't going to do anything, and Core JJ is a support, and his impact is somewhat limited. So shut down the big carries, make sure that they can't do anything, and you should be fine. I think Nisqy's big advantage over Jensen is Nisqy can actually play Akali and Aurelia. We saw from Worlds and the playoffs also, Jensen just appears to not be able to play Aurelia or Akali. So he can actually play those champions. So he has, I think, a leg up in terms of champion pool. So maybe we can use that to our advantage.
Yeah. Also, I think one of his more signature champions I've seen actually get a lot of. It's either 100% pick ban from what I've seen. I think to some degree it's been banned a good amount, but is Cassiopeia right now, and I'm pretty sure one of his more signature champions in EU last year was Cassiopeia because that thing was clean. But I would say 2-0. I want to say 2-0 this week simply because I think that the fact that this team, I'm pretty sure half the teams in LCS right now only got together the past 2 weeks. And the second the Nisqy signing got announced, C9 wasted 0 time, and they just said we're going to Korea. We're gonna boot camp, we're gonna scrim all these Korean teams, and they've been scrimming for almost 2 months now. It's actually crazy. So I'm pretty sure that's what Sven Skaren in an interview with Travis said, that that like that's kind of why he feels like they've been doing pretty decently in scrims, is because most of these teams just got together anywhere from like just now to like 2 weeks ago. So I think that's where they'll have the leg up. And yeah, I think a 1-1 week for this difficult of an opening week will be already kind of a statement. This team definitely is not to be underestimated. But if they have a 2-0, it's like, okay, well, it would be good for the long term in terms of the matchups and trying to force tiebreakers if that's the case. But it would also be just good to start off on a good note.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably the hardest first week that they really could have given us. I think they're two of my top 3 teams in the league, the other one being Cloud9. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go running through the gauntlet first. But I think if they were going to get the top 2 teams, I think the first week is probably the best time to do it, just because there is a lot of nerves, a lot of new things that are going to be happening in your first competitive experience as a team. So I think how Cloud9 beats Team Liquid is through the fact that they maybe quite haven't figured out how they're going to win the games from who gets all the gold and who is supposed to carry the game. And I think that if Cloud9 can win a lane or two and even out in the jungle, that I think that we have every reason to believe that our late game shot calling can go head to head with theirs, even though they have a lot more experience than us. But I really like our ability to pull the trigger and just fight at a moment's notice and understanding our power limits. And that was something Team Liquid didn't quite show enough of at Worlds, and that was kind of the last thing that we saw of them. And what we last saw of Cloud9 was this aggressive team that wasn't scared to fight. And I think most of that came from everybody but Jensen. So I'm hopeful of that. How we beat 100 Thieves, I think on paper we are better than them almost in every position. I think Aframu offers more to the game than Zazel does. And I think Someday is probably in a 1v1 matchup without junglers and stuff, probably a better mechanical player than Licorice is. But I think the junglers for Cloud9 have done a really good job of picking the right lane to carry the game, going all the way back through the summer split last year. So I have faith in Sven to pick the right lane to carry you through more than I do someone like Anda, and especially have someone like who he completely carry a game. So I want to say 2-0 just because I feel like I have to, because I am a homer.
Oh, Marge. Sorry. I was trying to do a Homer Simpson impression. It didn't work. I think we can beat 100 Thieves. They have a couple new players, so the synergy between everyone isn't exactly there, and they're maybe trying to figure out their game plan. I think Cloud9 just sticks to what has worked for them. Leverage team fighting and getting people like Licorice or Niski ahead early, and then just kind of snowball through team fighting. As long as you don't let anyone on 100 Thieves get too super far ahead, and you stick to a solid game plan, I don't think it should be any issue. I think we should at least be able to go 1-1 this weekend. And also, I think, just as a caveat, I don't think we can judge our team as well as any other team, I think, too harshly until maybe after like week 4. I think that's really the cutoff point, and then that's really the decisive point to see, like, okay, here's how the team should really be, and then go from there. But I'm hoping that C9 can start off on the right foot early instead of faltering and looking like a bunch of clods for a while.
No, yeah. Based off of the fact that we've had more time to gel, and the fact that I believe in terms of if we include coaching and player changes, Cloud9 has made like the least most changes in terms of like any team in the NALCS. Like some teams going in with brand new, like it's not even like the same team from last year. Then you have Team Liquid, which made made 2 changes in their players, but like They shouldn't be terribly different from like last, and that's good because that way we have some familiarity as opposed to some teams just trying to figure out where or how the hell they want to play. No, this should be good for Cloud9, and I think that a lot of people have them pretty. I mean, they have they have a lot of players who can be top 2, top 3. They have a bench which is pretty dangerous, and like I mean, it's it's kind of almost difficult to prepare for Cloud9 because they have that like ace in the hole for like a lot of their games. And I think that yeah, a 2-0 week would be good. It's somewhat possible. A 1-1 week would definitely not only be very realistic, I think it's attainable. And even if it's like, and like knock on wood, like if it's 0-2, it's like I mean, is it really the worst thing to lose to 2 teams that are really hyped? Like I mean, no, it's I mean I'm fairly confident we can keep these games competitive at the very least.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I think as long as they at least show some good form, even if they lose a game or 2, I think it'll be okay. You know, we went from last place to second place and going into the World Semifinals last year. So it's not, you know, losing a few is fine. And I think that they have a really good idea of the big picture of maybe how much they need to lose and where they can place their losses. So I think it should be fine. I'm mostly just hoping for some good league, as well as you know, some really great stuff from C9. So
Absolutely.
any final thoughts before we close out?
No, I think that's about it. We
All right.
rambled on enough.
Well, that's also before we finish, I want to give a quick shout out to my coworker Seth. He listens to us, and he asked if I give him a quick shout out on the show.
What up,
So,
Seth?
hi Seth, thanks for watching.
What up, Seth?
Yeah, especially thank you exclusively for watching, and thank everybody else for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening as well, everyone. Be sure to follow us at C9 Bodied. We will definitely be tweeting up a storm now that the season has started back up. Also, hit us up on our email if you have anything you want to get in touch with us about. Bodiedfancast@gmail.com. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.
All right, bye guys.
Pleasure as always, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.